A single mother was fired and broke down in tears until an unknown customer approached and quietly placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Her trembling hands tried to hide her face, but the tears streamed faster than she could wipe them away. The cafe she had worked at for almost 3 years had just let her go, and all at once, the fragile world she held together for her little boy seemed to collapse. Bills were due, the rent was behind, and the only job she had counted on had slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. The customer, a tall man with kind but piercing eyes, did not speak immediately. He simply slid into the chair across from her, resting his steaming cup of coffee between them. She tried to gather herself, embarrassed at her public display of sorrow, but he leaned forward with a calmness that made her stop. "Sometimes," he said in a voice warm yet commanding, "the storm isn't meant to break you, it's meant to clear a path you can't yet see." She looked up, startled. She did not recognize him. His suit was too fine for a casual visitor, his watch too expensive for someone simply passing by. Yet, there was no arrogance in his manner, only an aura of patience. She wanted to dismiss him, to retreat into her pain, but his presence made that impossible. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. I can't lose this job. My son depends on me. I've tried so hard, and still, I wasn't enough." The man studied her, as though every word she spoke weighed heavily in his mind. He let silence stretch, and in that silence, her shame deepened. But then he said something unexpected. "Do you know why I noticed you?" She shook her head slowly. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Because I saw strength where you see failure. You don't realize it yet, but the fact you're even here, still standing, still fighting for your child, proves you're stronger than most." Her chest rose with a shudder. No one had said words like that to her in years. Not since her son's father had left, not since her family had drifted away, not since the world had turned colder than she thought she could bear. She blinked through her tears. "Why are you telling me this? You don't even know me." He smiled faintly, a smile not of charm but of recognition, as if he knew far more than she realized. "Maybe that's exactly why. Sometimes it takes a stranger to remind us of who we are. But maybe we aren't strangers after all." Her brow furrowed. She wanted to ask what he meant, but before she could, he reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled out a card. It was black, embossed with gold letters that glinted in the light. He slid it across the table with the gentlest motion, as if it carried the weight of destiny itself. "I don't usually do this," he said softly, "but I believe people cross paths for a reason. Call this number tomorrow. Tell them I sent you. An opportunity will be waiting if you're willing to take it." Her hands trembled as she picked up the card. It bore only a company's name, one she vaguely recognized from headlines about innovation, charity, and success. She looked back at him, bewildered. "Why me?" He stood slowly, adjusting his suit with graceful precision, his eyes still locked on hers. "Because sometimes life removes us from where we don't belong, only to place us exactly where we're meant to be. You're not done yet. Your story has only just begun." And with that, he turned to leave. She wanted to call out, to demand more answers, to cling to the strange hope he had just ignited. But her voice caught in her throat, and all she could do was watch him disappear through the cafe door. She stared down at the card, her tears now mixed with something she hadn't felt in a long time, possibility. Her mind wrestled between disbelief and a fragile spark of faith. Could this man be genuine? Could she really trust that this was not another cruel twist of fate? She thought of her son, his innocent eyes that looked to her as his entire world, and for his sake, she knew she had to try. That night, she tucked her son into bed with a shaky smile. "Don't worry, sweetheart," she whispered as he drifted into dreams. "Mommy's going to figure it out. I promise." When the house fell silent, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the card under the dim light. 1,000 doubts whispered against her courage, but stronger still was the echo of the man's words. "Your story has only just begun." She reached for her phone, her fingers hovering over the numbers, until finally, slowly, resolutely, she began to dial. Her finger paused on the last digit, her breath shallow, as though the act of calling might shift the axis of her entire life. The silence of the small kitchen wrapped around her, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional groan of the pipes in the walls. She glanced at the card once more, as if searching for some hidden clue, some confirmation that this wasn't all a cruel trick of fate. The gold-embossed letters shone faintly under the weak bulb, mysterious and weighty. Her hand trembled, and for a moment she considered putting the phone down altogether. But then she thought of her son again, curled up beneath his worn blanket in the next room, breathing softly, dreaming dreams untouched by struggle. He deserved better than a mother who gave up. That thought ignited something inside her, a small, steady flame that burned through her fear. She pressed the final digit. The line rang once, twice, a third time. Her chest tightened with every echo. On the fourth, a crisp, professional voice answered. "Good evening, Sinclair Enterprises. How may I direct your call?" Her breath caught. Sinclair. The name was unmistakable. She remembered now. Articles she had skimmed in the news, stories of the company's meteoric rise, its reputation for philanthropy as much as innovation. Sinclair Enterprises was spoken of with reverence in both boardrooms and neighborhoods. But what did she have to do with them? Hello, she stammered, her voice thin. I was told to call. A man, he gave me this card. She read the name and number aloud, uncertain whether she was making a fool of herself. There was a pause on the other end, and she imagined the receptionist frowning, perhaps rolling their eyes at yet another desperate caller pretending to know someone important. But instead, the voice shifted, softening in tone. "Yes, ma'am. We were expecting your call. Please hold for a moment." Her stomach flipped. "Expecting me?" Music filled the line, faint and elegant, but her heart thudded so loudly she barely heard it. She nearly hung up, overwhelmed by the weight of it all, but before she could, the music stopped, and another voice replaced it. This one was deeper, older, calm yet commanding. "Good evening. This is Robert Sinclair." Her entire body froze. She had not prepared herself to speak directly to him. The Robert Sinclair. The man whose name appeared on magazine covers, the visionary who had built an empire from nothing. Her tongue felt like lead. "Sir, I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't even know why I'm calling. Someone gave me your card and told me." "That someone," Sinclair interrupted gently, "is my son. He spoke of you with uncommon conviction. I trust his instincts." Her pulse stumbled. His son. So the man in the café, the stranger who had comforted her, was none other than the heir of Sinclair Enterprises. The thought spun in her mind, dazzling and terrifying all at once. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice cracking again. "You don't need to say much," Sinclair replied, his tone deliberate and kind. "You need only to listen. We have an opening in a program designed for people who have been overlooked, those who deserve a chance but were denied one by circumstance. If you are willing to step into the unknown, there is a place for you. Training, resources, mentorship. We invest not in resumes, but in resilience. And from what I've heard, you have that in abundance." Her eyes stung again, though this time the tears that gathered were not of despair, but disbelief. Opportunity. The very word felt foreign on her tongue. "But why me? There are so many others, so many more qualified." "Because," Sinclair interrupted with a quiet authority that silenced her doubts, "sometimes the people who doubt themselves most are the very ones who rise the highest. Our program doesn't look for qualifications. We look for fire. Do you have it?" Her hands clenched tightly around the phone. She remembered the humiliation of being fired, the endless nights worrying about bills, the silent screams she swallowed in the dark when her son was asleep. All of it was fuel. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but sure. "I have it." "Good," Sinclair said. "Then be at our headquarters tomorrow morning at 9. Ask for me. The rest will follow." The line clicked, leaving her in stunned silence. She set the phone down slowly, her hands shaking as if she had touched lightning. Was this real? Or had her exhausted mind conjured some wild fantasy? But no, the card lay before her, tangible, undeniable. The voice on the phone had been unmistakably real. That night, she could not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing between hope and dread. What if she failed? What if this was some cruel test she was destined to fail? But then she heard her son stir in the other room, mumbling softly in his dreams, and she knew she could not turn back. For him, she would walk into fire if she had to. Morning arrived far too quickly. She rose before dawn, her body sluggish from lack of rest, but her spirit taut with determination. She had little to wear that felt appropriate for a meeting at a place like Sinclair Enterprises. Her wardrobe was full of uniforms, casual clothes, things worn thin with years of labor. She finally chose the plainest dress she owned, smoothing it as best she could, and tied her hair back with careful precision. She looked at herself in the mirror, seeing not a polished professional, but a mother ready to fight for her child's future. She kissed her son goodbye, whispering promises of a better tomorrow, and dropped him at the neighbor's before boarding the first bus downtown. Her heart pounded with every passing block. The skyline grew taller, the buildings more gleaming, until finally she stood before the headquarters of Sinclair Enterprises. It towered above her, its glass walls reflecting the rising sun, a monument to possibility. Her knees threatened to give way as she entered the vast lobby, its marble floors gleaming, its chandeliers sparkling like constellations. People moved with purpose, polished and confident, and she felt like an imposter among them. But then she remembered the stranger's words in the café. "Your story has only just begun." She straightened her shoulders and stepped forward. At the reception desk, she uttered the words she had rehearsed all night. "I'm here to see Robert Sinclair." The receptionist looked up, her eyes sharp with curiosity, but instead of dismissal, she gave a small, knowing nod. "He's expecting you. This way, please." And just like that, the single mother who had broken down in tears less than 24 hours earlier was being led deeper into a world she had never dared imagine for herself. Every step echoed with the weight of her past and the promise of her future, and she walked as though carrying both on her shoulders. Her story had shifted, as though fate itself had reached out and turned the page. But she had no idea just how many chapters still waited to be written. The applause faded into a silence that carried more weight than the laughter ever had. Alejandro stood in the middle of it all, his daughter pressed close to his side, her small hands wrapped around his arm like she was holding on to the very pillar of her world. He did not bask in the moment, nor did he allow pride to inflate his chest. Instead, he stood simply as he always did, humble, steady, dignified. Yet something had changed. The air no longer treated him as invisible. The very people who might have ignored him moments earlier now looked at him with awe. The millionaire, restless and cornered, slammed his glass down, the sound sharp against the table. "All of you clap for stories, for words. Empty air. Do you not see? He is still poor, still desperate, still bound by nothing but fantasy." His voice cracked with anger, but it lacked the power it once carried. The audience, still moved by Alejandro's display, did not return to his side. Wealth could command attention, but it could not command respect when truth stood so firmly before them. Alejandro finally turned toward him. His eyes were calm, not blazing with anger, not boiling with revenge, just calm, steady as still water. "You mistake me, sir. Poverty is not a shame, and words are not air. They are the seeds of change. A child lifted by words can grow into someone who changes nations. A heart healed by words can rise from despair. Empires fall when words are misused, and empires are built when they are spoken wisely. Do not tell me that words mean nothing. They have always been the beginning of everything." The man had no answer. His lips parted as though he might argue again, but the sound caught in his throat. He knew deep down that no watch, no car, no mansion could silence the kind of truth Alejandro had just spoken. Isabella, standing a little closer now, let her voice carry through the hall. "We live in a world where money dazzles us, blinds us to deeper treasures. Tonight, this man reminded us of something we all forget. Wealth without wisdom is empty, but wisdom without wealth still has the power to shape the world. Remember that, all of you." Her words were not aimed at the millionaire alone. They were meant for everyone. Alejandro's daughter, Amara, looked around the room with wonder. For the first time in her young life, she saw people look at her father the way she had always seen him, with admiration. Her heart swelled with pride, and she whispered, not just to him but to herself as well, "One day, Papa, I'll learn more than 9 languages. I'll speak to the whole world, just like you." Alejandro knelt and took her small hands into his rough, calloused ones. "You already speak the most important language, my little one," he said softly. "You speak with kindness, with love. Never lose that, for it will carry you further than any tongue on earth." Those listening were struck by the tenderness in his voice, the wisdom in his simplicity. It was a moment that stripped away all pretenses, the chandeliers, the marble, the expensive suits, and laid bare what mattered most: love, dignity, and the legacy of values passed from parent to child. The millionaire, realizing the tide had turned against him, rose abruptly from his seat. His pride could not tolerate defeat. His arrogance could not withstand the spotlight shifting to another. Without another word, he stormed out, leaving behind the hollow echo of his footsteps. The absence of his presence only magnified Alejandro's. The room no longer revolved around money. It revolved around truth. Isabella walked closer, her eyes steady on Alejandro. "Do you teach?" she asked. He hesitated. I used to in a small school long ago, but the wages could not keep us alive. I work wherever I can now, construction, markets, deliveries. Teaching seemed like a dream too far. Her expression softened with both sorrow and resolve. The world has wasted too much already, pushing aside voices like yours. But I will not let it waste yours. Come see me tomorrow. I can open doors for you, real doors, not gilded ones that only trap people inside, but doors where your gift can change lives. Alejandro looked at her, his brows furrowed with disbelief. Why me? Why help? Isabella's smile was faint but unshakable. Because the world needs men like you. Because your daughter deserves to see what her father is truly capable of. And because I believe in more than money, I believe in voices that can touch the soul. Alejandro's heart beat heavily in his chest. For so long, survival had been his only thought. He never dared to imagine that the words he carried, the languages he had gathered through hardship, could one day lift him beyond mere survival. But now, standing before a room that had witnessed his worth, hearing Isabella's unwavering belief, he felt the stirrings of something he thought he had lost, hope. Amara hugged him tightly, her face buried in his chest. Papa, she sees you. Just like I do. He wrapped his arms around her, his voice low but strong. And that is enough for me. With you by my side, I am richer than any man alive. The crowd, still silent, still watching, felt a shift within themselves. It was not just Alejandro's story anymore. It was theirs too, a reminder that dignity cannot be bought, that strength is not measured by wealth, and that the greatest treasures often lie hidden in the hearts of those the world overlooks. They had come for a meal, but they left with a lesson they would never forget. As the night wore on and people departed one by one, Alejandro and Amara remained a moment longer. The chandeliers still sparkled, but they no longer felt intimidating. Instead, they seemed to bow in quiet acknowledgement of what had unfolded beneath their glow. Isabella stood nearby, offering her hand with quiet certainty. Alejandro took it, not as a man desperate for saving, but as a man ready to walk into the future that had finally opened its doors. And though he had walked in carrying nothing but his daughter's hand, he left carrying something greater than gold. The recognition of his worth, the belief of a stranger who chose to stay, and the promise of a destiny his daughter would one day inherit. In the end, the millionaire's laughter was forgotten, but the single father's words lived on in every heart that heard them. Words that became more than sound, more than language. Words that became the beginning of everything.